appropriate was the Halloween remakes. Well, the second one didn't even use the music at all. It was like, fuck it, we're not even using it. But the first Halloween remake, Rob Zombie, he would just blow the John Carpenter music all the time in the original and just kind of like overdid it, and then it didn't come in when you wanted to. Like you should have first heard it the first time he puts the mask on, and that would have been amazing.
It's interesting the connection we all have with themes and connecting themes to characters. I remember I have to always mention The Legend of Zelda in every single video, but I had a friend when I was a kid who, when the first time we played Link to the Past together, he was like, oh man, they're using the same music again when it went to the overworld, and I felt totally differently. I was like, oh, this is great. It's the theme from The Legend of Zelda. They're using it again. Now I feel like I'm playing Zelda again.
I think since you witnessed somebody say that, I wonder if that's the way most people feel, because you know how all these movies, nowadays, like the James Bond movies, you hardly hear the theme, and like all these shitty Transformers movies, they don't have the theme in there, and there's nothing. They don't like to use themes these days, like the Batman theme, all that. It's just.
Yeah, I was going to mention that with the Batman movies, like Christopher Nolan. It's a different series, so I understand why it's totally different music and everything.
Joel Schumacher had his own music.
But when being older and remembering the old 1960s Batman and remembering the old one with like Jack Nicholson, the Tim Burton Batman, and having that Danny Elfman theme in your head, it becomes so iconic in your mind that, okay, this song represents Batman to me. Or when you're watching Star Trek and you get those little cues of dun 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 dun. If that's not in there, a lot of times you don't feel like it's Star Trek. Sometimes when you're watching The Angry Video Game Nerd, when those parts come on, you feel like, there's a reason to use that kind of music. And I can understand why they don't use it sometimes, like with the Christopher Nolan Batman. If the Danny Elfman music came on in the Christopher Nolan movie, it probably wouldn't fit, because it's such a different style of a movie. But with this, I was so happy that they used the theme, because it brought me back to the old Godzilla movies, which is, I feel like that's what everybody wants so much.
Yeah.
Like, we miss Godzilla. It's been 12 years. Like, he's such an iconic character. So that moment really did it for me.
Yeah, I mean, when you use it appropriately, you have to use the theme right, and this one did. But either way, even the new music that was in it, all the original, not original, but the new original music was fantastic. Like, it really invoked a strong sense of dread.
Yeah.
And I think, bottom line, the soundtrack was amazing.
Yeah, I agree.
So, anything you didn't like about the movie?
There were, but I want to hear yours.
Okay. The only thing I think really, the main generic thing was that all the talking parts, I think it started to go on a little too long, specifically once it got to the third act. I think once you saw Godzilla at a certain part, where we're not up to spoilers yet, but as soon as you can tell, like, the final battle is starting to happen, but then it dies down again, and then there's like a lot of talking, and I think that if the talking scenes were cut down just a little more, like if it was like maybe an hour 45 minutes instead of 2 hours, I think it would have felt more entertaining, more consistent, because I started to get a little bored toward the end. That was my only complaint.
I can agree with that to an extent, but I will say for this movie, I actually was pretty invested in the story, and we were reading a subtitled version of it. I don't know if there's going to be a dubbed one later or something, but I was sitting there, and the worst thing is if you're watching a subtitled movie and you're not interested, because then you're reading and it becomes really boring. But this movie, I actually really liked the characters and the story, and I was following along with it, and I wasn't bored with it. So I was pretty okay with the story, but the thing that I really I don't know if I'm going to say this is something I didn't like, but this is more of a preference. And the major thing for me is that this is a movie that is kind of like the original Godzilla from 1954/1956 in America, right? Where Godzilla is the bad guy, and that's fine when they do that sometimes. Focus on Godzilla like that, and I love the original Godzilla movie, but when you see all the Godzilla sequels, and he's fighting Ghidorah, and he's fighting, all-out attack, and there's all these other monsters, and Orga, and all these great other characters. At this point in time, I kind of feel like I want to see. I don't want to go back again. I kind of just want to see the next chapter and what's going to happen, because I've seen Godzilla be evil and destroy Japan before.
Yeah.
I like
Jet Jaguar.
It didn't get like really crazy, and that's one of the things I started to enjoy so much about the Godzilla movies is how insane they got.
Yeah.
And, like, things are coming from space and they're going through time, and there's so much going on. And this movie's very basic, I would say.
Mostly, yeah. That's the thing, because with all the talking parts, it's for one thing, it's very politically charged, which I don't know quite what to make of it. But also, it was basically just how do we stop Godzilla? How do we stop Godzilla? And that's all everybody's talking about,
And I think that's okay, because this is the first time we've seen Godzilla in a Toho movie in 12 years. So it's okay because it's almost like rebooting it, so you kind of gotta start at square one. It might be weird if they just did this really bizarre movie and there hasn't been a Godzilla movie in 12 years.
Yeah.
But for me personally,
it's kind of like Star Wars. They started basic. They started basic over again just to get people back into it.
And I always say that. I think I said that back when they did the Ninja Turtle movie and the Batman, like Batman Begins and all that. I always want to see the next chapter. I get tired of the retellings because I already know the story. So why do I have to hear it again? Especially you wait such a long time to see your favorite characters again, and then they just retell the same story. It's like, well, the whole reason I was waiting all this time is to see the next thing.
You mentioned the subtitles. I thought a funny thing about the subtitles, we watched it with a group of people, and there were some parts that we found very comical because there were so many subtitles on screen where the dialogue is very fast for one thing. So you're already, you're reading, but you're also trying to like look at the expressions of the characters, because I like to see the faces of the characters, and the subtitles do kind of like, I have to like read fast to get back to, I want to watch the expression in their face. But then also there's these subtitles at the top of the screen. I guess it would be subtitles. They'd be above titles.
That would tell you like the location they're in or other information.
It would tell you the floor that they're on or something like that, or it would identify the people, the places. But also, since we were watching a screener version, they would have Toho's watermark, which had a whole bunch of text at the bottom. And then they would randomly start speaking in English every now and then. So when they'd speak in English, there'd be Japanese subtitles on top of the watermark, and then English subtitles again on top of the Japanese ones. And then there's subtitles at the top of the screen on top of the Japanese subtitles. And it was just like crazy amount of text.
It'd be really nice, like later on, when we're able to just watch a dubbed version without all the text on the screen.
No, I know subtitles are more respected. I know we said dubbed. I think they each have their advantages. I wish I just knew the language, because then I'd be able to just enjoy the movie. But the dubbed and subtitles, I think, each have their advantages. I think there can be bad dubbing where like the actors' voices are really silly and everything, and they don't match. But I don't mean the syncing. The syncing's never going to match completely because it's a different language. So anybody who makes fun of that is like, it's not going to match.
Sure.
But there can be better actors doing the voices better.
But to answer your question, I did not have a problem at all with subtitles.
No.
I enjoyed the story. It was good.
Okay. Spoiler alert. Now we move into the spoiler section. So overall, we both liked the movie. But if you don't want to be spoiled at all, then this is where you stop it.
Here.
All right. So we're carrying on. I want to talk about the first form of Godzilla. Now, you could see this as a negative thing about it, but I got so much joy out of it that I don't think it's negative. But the first form of Godzilla in this movie is hilarious.
Yeah.
It was not what I expected at all. And when you see him, the first time you see his face, I equate it to, the first thing I thought of was like, this is like watching The Giant Claw from 1957. I did a review on that.
I thought it looked like one of the Muppets.
It looked like a lot of things. It reminded me of Reptilicus a bit. It had these big googly eyes that never blink, and it's just this long neck, and he's going around, he's destroying things, cars are flying everywhere. And but what made me think so much of The Giant Claw was that The Giant Claw is a movie that starts off very serious, not totally serious, but competent. It's competently made. And then all of a sudden you see this monster, and it just built it up to this whole time. And finally, when you see it, you're like, what the fuck? So
I remember when we were watching in the theater, James was sitting behind me, and I just hear him go, what? like when he first appears on screen. And my thought was, okay, this is a different monster, and Godzilla's going to appear later. And
it was going to be Godzilla.
It actually did turn out to be Godzilla. I didn't know just yet when you first see him that he was going to mutate. But I actually thought the mutation was really awesome. Yeah, he looks ridiculous when you first see him, but it makes sense as you continue to watch the movie.
And one thing that I found really funny about it was just to think that if there really was a giant monster in real life destroying cities, it wouldn't matter what it looked like, you'd still have to be terrified. So if you actually did see the giant claw coming at you,
you're gonna shit your pants because it's gonna kill you.
Yeah.
Like, you might laugh a little while it's killing you. But.
Yeah, like would you be? There's, like, I don't know. That's just such a hypothetical, like, weird thing to imagine. But
if you're gonna get killed by a monster, but it looks absolutely like it has like ping pong ball eyes, but it's gonna kill you.
Imagine if it looked exactly like the giant claw or Reptilicus. Like, would you laugh at all?
You would laugh until a certain point, until it starts like ripping your body parts off, and then you're not laughing anymore.
I think you'd just be so freaked out of your mind if that happened. So the later forms of Godzilla. So, like, when he's, like, his mouth is stretching open like Pac-Man and he's shooting lasers and lasers are coming out of his back.
That was all amazing.
Yeah, I thought that was awesome because, like, all the crazy stuff you're talking about, like, we didn't get, like, King Ghidorah and stuff like that, or no Monster X or anything, but
well, not just other monsters, which is something that I love, and I did want to see other monsters. That was the one thing I was kind of disappointed at, that there weren't. I thought maybe at the very end they were going to do that, but they didn't.
It's kind of made that up for me, that the fact that first of all, I didn't mind that it's been a long time since they've done a movie where it's just Godzilla, but then also that Godzilla did so